peering at your pictures. They're lovely, aren't they?
Bit of a different assortment.
Oh, they're great. They're really good. Oh, excuse me. I think I'm alive. Do I look alive?
Yeah, you're moving. You're fine.
That's a good start. That's always a good start. Oh. Have we been asked any questions?
Yes, actually. Yes.
Right. Just before we get into the questions, I've got now, do you know, have I talked? Trevor's got me writing environment. Wow. I'm just impressed by the cup.
Oh.
Yeah, I've got one like that too.
Yes, the Le Creuset one. Ridiculously expensive, but lovely.
Yeah, but they're gorgeous, and I love the Crusoe stuff. Anyway, sort of back on track. Trevor's got me writing environmental gardening.
Yes.
Right. Well, this morning I got an email from Severn Trent. That's who does our water, and they're quite good actually. They're one of the better ones, at least they seem to be. And they're pushing the wildlife thing, and they're doing lots of wildlife training, and some of it seems to be about wildlife gardening, which will be very sort of nice and basic. But they're offering a grant.
Mm. Oh.
And so, and they offered me an email. So I've writ off and asked, do I qualify? Because what I've actually asked about is I'm not only doing the book for Trevor, but Shropshire Wildlife Trust want me to do a set of Zooms on it next autumn, winter.
Excellent.
On the garden, how do we be environmental? Because we know about not mowing too much and, leaving things and not using chemicals and all that kind of stuff. But how do we get more environmental, which is precisely what Trevor asked me.
Yeah.
And so they want me to do that. And they're going to give me lots of help and training on habitat, which is really what we're talking about. And my big thing with it is that all gardens can be part of wildlife corridors.
Yes,
absolutely. Including ones like yours.
Yeah.
You've got a street and they've all got gardens.
Yeah.
That can actually be a connection.
Yeah.
Along. But how do you do it? And, how difficult is it? And do I need a degree or something ridiculous? No, you don't. Really, you probably don't want one, actually. Because a lot of them, they talk in words about yay long. And they do an awful lot of talking and not necessarily an awful lot of doing. And actually, it's the doing that helps the wildlife rather than the committees, etc. So anyway, I've written off to them, and I've only just done it, and I don't know whether they will come back or not. But I'd like to sort of like push a bit more about not wildlife gardening, environmental gardening, and you can do it at home, and it's okay in a city and in a corridor. You're being a corridor and all this kind of stuff. And of course, I got all sparked at the thought that somebody might actually pay me a bit more to do it.
Yeah, excellent.
Every little helps,
Absolutely. We made our first trip out in months yesterday to a garden centre. And we didn't actually buy any plants. We just bought a few odd bits and pieces that we needed, and we still spent ridiculous amounts of money just on, maintenance, plant feed and things like that. So it can cost.
It can, and again, it doesn't have to, and that's part of the environmental gardening. Yeah, I mean, I saw your pic of you, but not the other half.
It was cold,
a bit nippy in the cafe. But the chocolate,
because we're not allowed to sit inside yet, are we? So they've got all tables set up outside. Yeah. It was a little little bit chilly.
I can imagine, yeah. And I sat outside yesterday afternoon with a cup of tea after I'd done some gardening. But I was, like you, I was well wrapped up. And there was quite a strong northeasterly breeze going. But it was so beautiful.
Yes, yeah.
You know, I've got to sit out in this.
Yeah.
Because it's going to rain again soon, and then I won't be able to sit out in the rain. So I'm really sort of energized a bit at the moment on environmental gardening.
Here's a question then on that. We had a question over on the Kitchen Witch Coven Facebook group yesterday asking about hedgehog houses. Someone had been given one of the little wooden hedgehog houses and didn't know where to put it. Where's the best place to put it? Where's the best place to position it? And provide the best place, really, to encourage hedgehogs into your garden. So there's your question for starters.
Well, they're fabulous beasts.
Yes,
and they're quite amazing. And they really will help you with things like slugs and snails. You may not see them. If they're really happy and healthy, please be prepared that you're not going to have your little friendly hedgehog necessarily. And especially in the summer, you shouldn't. And nor should you in the winter, because they're mostly nocturnal or twilight. So you might see them in the twilight, both ends, evening and morning. And they are woodlandy, hedgerowy creatures. So you want your box in whatever you can do with the equivalent of a hedge. Now, I understand this is difficult in town gardens. I had one for 20 years in London, but we managed. And one of the things you need to be sure of to start with is that you've got some little holes in your fence each side.
Yes. So they can actually get into your garden.
Yeah, and out of it again. Because they go on quite little traipses every night. And if you ever do get to see one, they can go quite a lick. That was a hedgehog. And they really do. So you want to have it fairly near a hedgehog-sized hole. On the hedgehog help sites, and there's lots if you Google, you'll get sort of the size of hole to make, and it isn't too hard to do, even in a wall. Obviously, a wooden fence is a damn sight easier.
Yes, we've got walls all around our garden. Yeah.
It can be done.
Yeah.
And one of the ways that you might be able to ask your builders about it to do it is, how thick are your walls? Sort of about like that.
Yeah, they're only one brick.
That's not too problematic.
Yes, they're not too bad.
You might even find, and the builder might do this for you, that just knocking 1 or 2 bricks out.
Yes, that would work, wouldn't it?
Yeah. And, he'd be able to say, we can knock this one and this one, and the wall won't fall down. I mean, that's one's normal worry. If I knock one out of the bottom, the whole bloody lot's going to go. No, we don't want that. But you can probably knock a couple of bricks out on either side. I would use somewhere like a corner. You want, because it's sort of sheltered around. All sorts of other critters do eat hedgehogs. And, this isn't horrid. It's part of their dinner.
Yes.
So please don't say, horrible badger, it ate my hedgehog.
Yeah.
Or horrible fox.
Too. And we love foxes too.
Yes. They do.
Yeah.
There was a lovely little video, somebody's trail cam in their garden or somewhere anyway. This hedgehog came along, and this fox was sneaking up on it. It really was doing the sneak and the stealth. And the hedgehog was there sort of like this little head out. And the fox's head came round, and it very nearly got the hedgehog's head. But he didn't. The hedgehog rolled up and rolled away, and the fox said, "Oh well." But fortunately, there were some eggs about, so he got an egg.
Yeah.
Because he was obviously hungry.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's it. the pyramid, isn't it? That's
it is, and
something's always there to eat something else.
Yes, and whatever it is, whether it's animal or vegetable, it will be eaten. I mean, so will you. I mean, you know, back on this sort of how to kill people quickly. But I mean, as soon as you die, within a minute or two, you will have bugs in all the orifices, and they will be starting to eat you inside. You won't mind. You won't give a damn because you won't be there.
No, yes.
And they need the food, and everything else needs the food from them. Because I mean, the bugs are then eaten by other things, etc. And the whole pyramid, as you say.
Yeah.
So don't worry too much about that. And it may happen, it may not. If you've just knocked a couple of bricks out of your wall, probably it won't be big enough for a fox, but it might.
Oh, the foxes come over the top of their
there you
6 and 8 foot walls. So yes,
yeah. So it could happen.
A badger might struggle, but
no, badger would need to go under. But a couple of bricks again might encourage it to dig, and of course they can.
I've not seen badgers, but we do get foxes.
Foxes
they walk along the top of the walls because it's terrace. They just stroll from one end of the street to the other along the back garden walls.
So there again is your corridor.
Yeah.
And they're already using it as a corridor. Yeah. So you've got your hedgehog house, and they're usually fine. You want to put a bit of dry leaves. Don't put wet leaves in. Dry leaves and a bit of straw. That will just sort of start them off. But the hedgehog will build their own inside. And on your fence and on your wall or whatever it is, you need climbing plants. So, I mean, honeysuckle's obviously gorgeous. Yeah. Roses are fine. What else could you have?
Jasmine.
Jasmine, yeah. And there's the Evergreen Jasmines.
Yes.
They're nearly evergreen, some of them. And so that's keeping the cover on.
Yeah.
Don't start me off. But yeah, they're keeping the cover. You could have some small, pretty bushy shrubs around there, and there's lots of things that you can get. I mean, you don't have to get into things like azaleas and rhododendrons and all that kind of thing. Small bushy shrubs, and there are lots in your garden centre, and they flower and they will fruit.
Yeah.
So you're adding extra. And hedgehogs do eat fruit as well.
Oh, so do they? I didn't know that.
They will do. They're mostly into, for God's sake, don't give them milk, ever.
Oh, no, yes.
You'll kill them.
That was the old thing, wasn't it? Bread and milk. Yeah, no.
Well, there's all sorts of weird tales, like the farmer would sort of say, God knows how this started, that the hedgehog would go out and then wait till the cow was lying down and then suck her teats. I mean, honestly, there are these old stories, and you sort of go, yes, that sounds a little bit like something to scare the kids.
Yeah.
And you know, it has never, ever, ever been known to happen. And they will drink it because it's sweet and it tastes nice.
Yeah.
But please don't.
Yeah, it's not good for them, is it?
No, you can kill them with it. Yeah. And they don't really do dog food at all. Cat food and the straight meat cat food, you know, no additives, no extras, no complete meal stuff. Because it's all full of stuff they can't digest again. Neither actually can the cats. But interestingly, but it's a bit of meat in that sort of way. That will bring them. Or go on one of the hedgehog sites, and there are lots, and they will have a list of hedgehog food that you can feed.
Yeah. So
you want to put a bit of that near, not in the box, because they don't actually want to sleep with their food, and if they've got this bloody great dish lying around in there, it's going to really bugger them up. So you want to make it so you can't really see it. if you've got, some gardens, we need that tree's broken, we need to take it down. So if you've got a fire, yes, keep some of the logs. But if you have, whether you have or not, there will be brash. And brash is the twigs and stuff and leaves that comes off it.
Yeah.
Now, don't throw that away in your garden. Stack it up around where your hedgehog box is going to be. Partly because it will encourage little insects. It will encourage little amphibians and even slugs and things. And you won't mind if they go in there, honest. They're not going to eat your hostas in there. And then the hedgehog's only got to stick his nose out and maybe there's some grub.
Takeaway delivery. Excellent.
Well, this is what you're here for, This is part of our jobs. So make it into a little shrubby corner. A little tiny patch of the edge of a woodland.
Yeah.
That's what you're aiming at. The other thing that all animals and birds need somehow or another is water.
Water.
Now, there's no point in having a nice bird bath on a plinth for a hedgehog.
No.
I'm sorry, they can't do it. Don't happen.
A little lift.
No. And the other thing is, if you've got a pond, don't have it all, nicely paved, and so there's a plonk and the hedgehog goes in, but he can't get out.
A swimming pool with a little diving board.
Please, no. The frogs will love it, but not the hedgehog. So you need something that's got a gentle, trying to get her arm right, a gentle slope, and I mean a slope like that, so that if they fall in, and they can swim, and it happens, they can come out.
Yeah.
Please don't go into politicians' varieties of duck boards and things. You really don't need it. So the other thing you can do, of course, and they will be able to get out of, is one of the ways to make a small pond in your garden is a dustbin lid.
Yes, I think you mentioned this before. I think that's a genius idea. Absolutely genius.
It costs you almost nothing. You can probably pick one up in a skip.
Yeah.
And you'll end up with a pool only that deep. Now, if you put some pebbles in there, around sort of 1/4 of it or 1/3 of it, then the hedgehog can easily walk up the pebbles. It's a little bit more difficult. They get up the side. And, of course, rubber or tin or whatever your dustbin's made of is, and black rubber is better, is still a bit slippery. And then they've got this sort of rim at the end.
Yeah.
So you need to, again, make a little ramp for them to come out. Don't put that too near the hedgehog house, because he won't mind coming out for a walk from that. And of course, other creatures will use it, and they may disturb him. So you don't want it too close. We all like our space. Critters like their space too.
Yeah,
you'll probably get birds come and bath in it, which is beautiful. And it's going to be, what's a dustbin lid? This wide?
Oh yeah, that's no sense at all, is it?
It's nothing.
Yeah.
And all you have to do is to make enough of a hole for it to sit in.
Yeah.
You can usually
that's a genius idea. That's so easy to do, isn't it?
And the other thing you can do with that is, because you probably got it in a bit of lawn or grass or something, so skim the grass off, which means you end up with about that much, the grass growing on the top, and when you've got the bin lid in, put the turfs over the edge.
Oh, right. Yes. Yeah.
And A, it looks prettier, and B, it's a lot easier for all the critters.
Yeah.
And the grass will grow back.
Yeah.
I assure you, it will. Grass is very good at this.
Yes.
Press it down. Don't just lie on tiddly widdly, and maybe put a bit of earth or compost or whatever you've got underneath, along the outer edge of the rim, and then squash it.
Yeah. And
it will work. And so that makes it look very natural and very easy, and the critters will like it. Food we've already dealt with. But the main thing is to take a corner, and not a hot corner. Use a shady corner.
Yeah.
They will keep themselves warm, and certainly in the winter, and the house and the leaves and the straw and everything that they've got in there will keep them warm. Now, do you all know about dressing in layers? You probably do.
We would hope we do.
Well, if you don't, you're just going to get a wee trip now. It is much better to wear 3 or 4 layers, relatively thin but good stuff layers, and each layer traps a little layer of warm air close to your body. Now, that's how animals work. I mean, that's how animals' fur works, actually, especially, you know, things like snow leopards and things. If you look at their fur, they actually work in layers.
Right.
And so do hedgehogs, and their spines help with that because they trap some air in. The leaves and the nest that they build traps more. The box that you've put around it traps more. So it's actually, it can be 5 or 6, maybe even more degrees warmer inside that box than it will be outside.
Yeah. I might get one for myself.
Yeah, they're not difficult.
In the corner of the room.
Well, yeah, and they're really easy. And so you don't have to worry about that. You have to sort of keep an eye on the poor thing, because what can happen, and if you have a very hot, dry summer, which you're probably adoring, you're about the only one who will be.
Yeah, no, I won't.
The animals and the plants.
Yeah.
This is not what any of them were built for or adapted for.
No.
So if you get a hot summer and say the leaves on your bushes dry up and die off, you still need to keep the shade over it. So,
Right.
I mean, don't cover it in plastic tarpaulins and things. Build stuff up. I mean, cardboard works. Natural stuff. And anyway, the cardboard will just rot down.
Yeah.
And actually help your ground. And so keep it sheltered and make sure there's water. If you get, you know, we had was it about 3 years ago, we had a really hot summer for about 2 months. Yeah. Have to have water out there for them. For all the creatures, you know, the foxes, the birds, the little beasties, everything. Because that it makes it really hard. Now, if it's like that, you may see the hedgehog during the day, because it also makes the ground very hard. It probably, the slugs and the snails won't be there.
No.
It'll be harder to dig in and get worms because they eat them too. And the insect population won't be doing very well because, again, it's too hot.
Yeah. So
you need to be sure that then they may need a little bit of food. You must, of course, if it's very hot, go and look at it at least twice a day, because, you know, rotten meat will kill anything.
Yeah.
So don't leave it. You need to look at it at least twice a day. If you go on holiday, that's what you need to educate your neighbour to do as well. Yes. Always a good idea, because you'll get them into wildlife gardening and they'll be happy. So there are all these sort of things to think about. And once they start coming, and they probably will, because actually towns are in many ways safer than countryside. It's like foxes. Less predators, I guess. Less humans. Less human problem, actually, because, you know, we drive over them. I'm just going to say less cars. Yes. Well, if the wildlife corridor, the garden corridor is working, they haven't got to go in the road. Across the road, yeah. Which is another part of it to think about. But they are delightful. And next month it will be really, they'll probably be starting mating. Some of them may in the warmer parts of the country already. Hedgehog mating is hysterical. First of all, it's not something I've ever thought about in great detail, I must admit. Well, apart from the mind slightly boggling in various sort of things, it reminds me of in Excalibur. There's a scene where Uther comes home and makes love to his wife without taking his armor off. And I saw this first in the cinema, and the whole cinema went. Very so it's one of the funny. I'm glad they've never sort of edited it, because it's so funny. It's worth it. But So one has all those kind of feelings about hedgehog prickles, but don't worry, they've obviously got it sorted and they've been doing it for millions of years, so let's not worry about that. But well, what happened first time I saw it, as it was a warm May evening, I got the bedroom window open and I was dozing off about 11:30, and outside I heard this sort of very loud snory grunting. And it kept on going, and then there was more of it. And so I thought, oh, look at this. And I went and hung out the window. Down on the lawn below were, I think it was 4 or 5 hedgehogs. And they were obviously milling around, and it looked a little bit like a hedgehog rave. And, and it was them making this snory noise.
Right.
And it's part of the mating, I then discovered.
Oh, okay. You don't think about them making a noise, really, do you?
They do. They do make noises.
Yeah.
And if you have them come around your door looking for you, or coming on your lawn, you will hear it. And there's a lot of noises. And I'm very good at this. And the snory one
There's
is
no end to your talents.
Absolutely. The snory one is quite distinctive. And they will be mating, so for goodness sake, don't disturb them. And they're not fighting.
Oh, yeah, no.
They sort of look a little bit sort of, oh my God. So don't try and go and separate hedgehogs. You'll yeah, pun intended, screw up the whole lot.
Yeah, look away. Let them get on with it.
They don't even seem to mind being watched. I mean, most animals do, but they probably don't really notice you unless you're right there on top of them. And I mean, I was, up in the upstairs window, and they were several feet across the lawn, kind of thing. So they didn't really know I was there.
Oh, I was thinking about the dustbin lid when you mentioned it before. We have got a bird bath, but the top of the bird bath comes off, and it is a big ceramic dish. And yeah, I am thinking that if I put it in the ground, then the birds can still get at it anyway. And I put big pebbles in it for the bees and things in case they get stranded in it.
Of course.
So moving it to the floor opens it up to all sorts of other creatures too, doesn't it? Yes, that is in my plans to do.
Good. And the thing about burying it though is that I mean, they look very pretty standing up as a bowl, but many little mammals can't actually handle it. So they might get in, but then the out is difficult. But well done on the bees, because that's the other thing. Please, if you're keeping pails of water out, which you might be for all sorts of reasons, go and look in them every day, because especially now when the bees are fairly recently woken up, you'll find bees desperately swimming, trying to find a way out. And if you do, lift them out. If it's a bumblebee, it won't sting you. If it's an ordinary bee, it probably won't either. But lift it out on something if you like. That's absolutely fine. And it is much, much, much better to give the bee a little drop of honey and water, not sugar.
Yes.
And sugar water will bring them round, but sugar is as bad for them as it is for us.
Yeah.
It is a horribly refined thing. We were talking about footprints the other day, and I mean, the footprint of sugar is sort of like, and it's dreadful what they have to do in order to make it edible.
Yeah.
And it's, of course, animals haven't been involved in sugar, and we've all been involved with sugar for hundreds of years. They haven't, so it'll bump them off much quicker. And I know beekeepers do it, and that is thought to be one of the reasons why the bees are more susceptible to the virus, because it weakens the bees.
Oh, okay, yes.
And you'll get all the arguments against it from the beekeepers who do it, the commercial beekeepers. But they never leave any honey in the hives either for the bees over winter. And the bees aren't actually making it for us.
Oh, well, no.
We get some excess if we're lucky, kind of thing. So put stones in your little pools, because then the bees can they will fall in.
Yeah.
But if they've got something to climb out onto,
Yes.
then they can dry off and get some energy from the sun, because they're sun beasts in that way. And they, all that swimming in the water and everything has drained them of energy. So they need energy before they can fly again. Either with the honey and water from you or the sun. And then they can get off and get out of there. Knowing bees, because they all talk to each other.
Yep.
Well, they probably sort of say, watch out over there. There's a bloody pool, don't fall in it.
Water alert.
Well, they tell each other where to go for which sort of flowers.
Yeah, so you would have to assume that they give warnings to each other as well, wouldn't
you?
They
do. I mean, there's been enough research of wild bee colonies and that. And they're quite the ones that nest in the ground or in the walls and things like that. They can be quite fierce. They won't probably hurt you, but it's quite startling. I had one nest just my garden's always paths with meadows and things in it, and there was one nest which I hadn't realized was there, just off the path. So down I comes with a lawnmower mowing my path, which is fine, and all of a sudden, the bees, what? Stuka bees, And so I looked around and I saw, and they've got. They're not exactly hives. They are like colonies, and they have protectors and feeders of the nest inside. And they come out to say, "Bugger off! This is ours. Get out of our way."
Yeah.
Right. So the path got an extra kink in it.
Yes.
After that.
Bit of a diversion.
I don't mind. Sorry, guys. You should have put a flag. Oh, bloody humans,
You do get that feeling, though, don't you? When I've been out just weeding and you sort of in amongst the plants, you kind of, the bees buzz, and you kind of get that feeling that they're saying, will you just hurry up? I've got work to do.
Yeah.
Away.
And it's worth taking note of where they go. I mean, part of the environmental gardening thing will, of course, be talking about weeding. And I have lots of decisions to make here, because one of the things that soils and plants don't like is to be uncovered. Soil does not like to be uncovered. It likes to have itself covered in plants. It then doesn't lose much moisture.
Right, yes.
Which, if it's just earth, it all just evaporates off.
Yes.
And the plants sort of work together. So I'm going to be weeding very, very carefully. I mean, I actually don't want nettles in amongst my roses. I have a whole place for nettles elsewhere. Yeah. That's fine. So they're going to come out. But I have grass growing up in the rose bed. Now, I've done this before. And so I'm looking to see what sort of grass it is.
Right.
Before I dig it out.
Yeah.
Because if you actually let grasses grow, and I know you have, and you've seen them out anyway, wild grasses are so beautiful.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And they come with these beautiful flowers and then these beautiful seed heads and the colours of them. So it's sort of like, whoa, normally you sort of say, oh, grass, going to dig that out. Think about it.
Yeah.
And learn a bit about it before you do. And again, those sort of things will actually help your hedgehog.
Yes.
Because it's all place that they can go. They're not very keen on bare soil either. Because again, there'll be some insects on it, but if it's very dry, there won't even be that.
Right, yeah.
Or the only thing they'll have is ants. And please don't kill all your ants' nests either. They're actually doing a good job. If they're actually where you want to sit, and every time you sit down you get bitten by ants or stung by ants, possibly you or they should move.
Yes, we did have to get rid of an ant's nest in our conservatory because the flying ants arrived. in droves. One day when we were sitting there, it was all of a sudden the whole conservatory was flying ants. It was gross.
Yeah, and it's very scary because they just come straight at you, and they just get in your hair and your clothes.
Yeah, it's horrible. But generally, I leave them to it. And we've got a whole patch of dandelions. We haven't got a front garden as such. We've got a front forecourt where the bins and stuff are. But there are a few weeds, and they are weeds because they're growing in amongst the paving. And there's a big bank of dandelions. So my husband said, "Oh, we need to weed that." I said, "No, we need to leave the dandelions because they are pretty much the only thing flowering at the moment, aren't they? And the bees do like them, don't they?"
I mean, mine, I've got lots in the garden, and mine are just full of bees and hoverflies and several other insects as well. With the weeds in your paving, if you can bear it, if you can persuade your husband, look at what they are when they come up, because you may find that they're very pretty.
Yeah, I mean, we've got the good old dandelions. We've got some milk thistles as well that do tend to come up on quite a regular basis, and a bit of grass.
Because I've got cracks all over the concrete front yard because it was really badly slung down by somebody many years ago. And I could spend my whole life digging out all the cracks.
Yeah. And it would be continuous too. It would be lather, rinse, repeat, really.
And so this last year I didn't, because I got plenty of nice garden that needs some attention. And I've got all sorts of things in those cracks now, including herbs and thyme and all sorts of stuff.
Right.
Because that's the sort of soil many of them like.
Yeah.
And so I take the lawnmower blade up and I just mow them.
Yeah.
I mow the concrete.
Excellent.
And it goes over, so you've got, your plants. Actually, it's amazing too. Dandelions and daisies particularly, they learn how high your mower blade is, and they won't grow. Honestly, I've got really short dandelions and short daisies.
Heads down, lads.
Yeah. And it does seem to be that they actually learn. I've never, it's like, whoa, I've always had this. And so the bits that you mow, they stay low, and the bits that you leave be, they grow tall. And so I'm thinking, I'm looking at it again this year. I think they're going to just be fine. I'll just sort of shove the mower over them.
Yeah.
And job done. Mm-hmm. You're never going to stop them coming up unless you dig the whole bloody lot up and have a nice new patio put down. Not happening.
And even then, eventually, they will find a way. Yeah.
They will. Yeah. Which is, again, something to think about, because these plants are actually breaking and opening the concrete.
Oh, yeah. You've got to admire their tenacity, really.
Whoa.
Determination.
This is a funny little green stem, that I can squish between my fingers.
Yeah. We've got a little wall at the front as well, and every year and I can't for the life of me remember the name of it, there's a wild flower that grows in the wall, and it's got little pretty sort of bluey lilac-y flowers, and it gets covered in these flowers, and the bees love that.
Adore it. Yeah.
Every so often we have to pull a bit away so that we can actually still open the front door, but
that is always an advantage. I've got a honeysuckle that's doing that at the moment around my kitchen door, and it says, "Sorry, dear, you're going to have a haircut." Because I want to get out. Yeah. But that's the way to go with things, and also to watch what actually grows in your garden, because that's what your soil can readily support without all this sort of extra buying that you need to buy at the garden centre.
Yeah, we have camellias, and so they love our soil. So we're on that side.
Your acid end,
yeah, we're on that side of it, and it's quite clayey. Although over the years we have been gradually breaking it down with all the digging and stuff. We also mulch. You said about losing the moisture from the soil. We do mulch as well. So we very rarely have open soil as such. It's usually got, if it hasn't got plants on it, it's got some sort of mulch on it.
Yeah. And at the moment, I've been letting, you know, those little ephemeral plants with the little white flowers that grow everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, they're doing that job for me, and they're called ephemerals because they only live for a few weeks, literally, and they will go around like that. They're pretty, they're tiny, pretty, and the insects like them.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like, I'm not going to pull that up yet. When I've got something to put in its place, I'll dig it up.
Yeah.
Or if it seems to be strangling something that's trying to grow, then it gets cleared.
Yeah.
So it's like, be careful of all of that. And you actually want thick planting because everything likes it.
Yeah.
And it's really worthwhile. So I do hope your person with the hedgehog box gets a hedgehog. She may not see one for sure and for a little bit, but once she starts, and once the habitat starts with, that looks like a nice bijou residence for hedgehogs, you know, she will.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
I also find it was a few summers back, I was watching the birds in the garden, and we don't get a huge array, but loads of sparrows. And we've got a wall at the back garden, and it's old. It was painted at some point, but the paint's all coming off. But I haven't repainted it because I like the look of it.
I would, yeah.
But the birds were hopping up onto the wall and actually clinging onto the wall. And I'm assuming they'd found insects there.
They have.
And they were eating. Yeah, and it was amazing. It was like scaling a brick wall.
You do.
Like Spider-Man.
It's quite incredible, isn't it?
It was fascinating to watch. So I'm leaving the wall alone now for definite because they're obviously finding lots of little insects in and amongst all of the mortar, I assume, and in amongst the bricks.
Well, it will do. And eventually, of course, you know, the wall will either need repointing, rebuilding, taking down and something else doing in it. But at the moment, it's fine.
Yeah. And they're enjoying it, so I shall leave that. I'm in a tiny, tiny garden and a tiny amount of lawn. But I'm going to try and work in just a strip of wildflower. I say the word meadow, but it's barely going to be a let alone a meadow. But we have loads of different flowers and variety of stuff anyway. But I kind of like the idea of at least getting just a strip down one edge of the lawn, just to see what happens, really.
Very good idea. And there are a couple of places you can go to get little plug plants. Now, plug plants will be much better in there than trying to seed. Because 10 to 1, you'll lose most of the seed to birds and insects.
Yes, or the dog digging
or the
it
dog,
up.
Indeed. And the plug plants, you won't. And one of the places is called Naturescape. Just trying to write that in. How do I write that in?
I've seen the seed mixes, obviously. So that was where I was thinking. I hadn't. I would go
to these first. Naturescape is one, and the other is British Wild Plants something. Hang on just a sec. I will find them because they're ever so good.
That's a good idea. I hadn't really thought about that. I was kind of leaning towards the seeds, but that would be a much better way of doing it. It will only be a tiny strip because we don't have for the room. The dog needs somewhere to, do his thing as well.
Well, exactly. Yeah, and
so he's got to have a bit of his space as well. But It is about getting the diversity of plants as well.
It is.
It's about getting the mixture of plants in there. So we have a bit of bedding, and we have all the usual dahlias and crocosmia and all the variety of stuff. And we've got a bit of blossom in the garden. The cherry's got its blossom on. So it is. Oh, and the crabapple, actually, that's got.
That must be doing really well at the moment, surely.
Yeah, that's got all its little buds on. So. It is about keeping a mixture, isn't it, of things, because all different butterflies like different things too, don't they? There are specific plants that specific butterflies like. We get a few red admirals, and I've seen blue ones and I've seen white ones. We even
got blues. That's really, really good.
I did last summer. I saw the odd blue one. We even a couple of years ago had a is it a hawk moth?
Oh,
it was amazing. I managed to capture a really good photo of it, but I was just literally in the garden. I thought, what on earth is that?
They are totally amazing, and the noise they make.
It was amazing. I've got a picture of it. It was feeding on one of the nautias in the garden, and
gorgeous,
amazing creature. But it's completely
British wildflower plants. Okay, I'm nearly there. I'm getting there. British wildflower.
I think it is about getting as many different types in your space, because most people know how small my garden is. It is about getting a variety in there, isn't it? Because they all attract different things. And we also we are very good. We don't spray or do any of the nasties, because I have found that the nature if you leave it will start to do its own thing, and the birds pick off a lot of the insects, and then the hoverflies do. Once you've got all of those other things coming in, they deal with the pests, don't they?
To them, of course, they're food, not pests. I mean, ladybirds, you've got a green fly, you want ladybirds.
Yes.
Because they just eat them. Chomping, they're sort of marching up the stem of your rose, chomping. and they do. Yeah. And it's quite amazing. And so you've got to have other things that will attract them in.
Yeah.
I was thinking, like you've got, I mean, I love crocosmias. I've got a whole thing about crocosmias. But in amongst your plants, if you have a look in these two places that I put up on the chat here, and I mean, you obviously know how tall crocosmia grow. Well, you can find out how tall the wildflowers will grow. And what I've done is I put some of them beside them.
Right.
In the beds.
Yeah.
And they look beautiful. I mean, I don't know whether you like verbascum. I do.
Yes, we have got verbascum in the garden.
Well, again, they're lovely. And there's wild verbascum, which is totally amazing.
Okay.
Back of the border stuff, because it's probably about as tall as you and me. And it's just covered, it's grey with these grey furry leaves. And then there's long stems grow up of these yellow flowers.
Yeah.
And when they do not have hysterics at the yellow and black striped caterpillars.
Caterpillars.
Please leave them alone.
Yeah.
They are one of the moss caterpillars. It's the Mullen Moss.
Right. Okay.
Mullen is the old word for verbascum.
Yeah.
And please don't kill them, because that's moths.
Yes.
And yes, they will eat the plant, but you will still get a lovely display of the yellow plants as well.
Yeah.
Another one that goes in really well with, especially if you've got orange crocosmia as well as the red, is evening primrose.
Yes.
Because that's
we did have one of those a while back, but it got so enormous.
They do.
But they're beautiful, aren't they? Because you get the scent in the evening from that one, don't you? It is, and it smells lovely.
And if it gets too big, split it.
Yes. Yeah.
And, you know, plant them in other bits and give them away to your friends and your neighbours and that sort of thing.
Yeah, we've got a few plants that we've divided, and then you get to give them away as well, don't you?
Yeah. And that so works, and it gets everybody interested, and it gets the community really going, and that sort of thing.
We do have. There's a couple of houses that do it locally. They put little seedlings or little plugs of things on their wall outside their house, just a sign saying, you know, I've got too many. Help yourself. Yeah. And it might be little tomato plants or little bedding plants or whatever, herbs and things, and they leave them out. There's a couple of houses that do it, leave them out on their wall, and people can help themselves, which is lovely.
It's lovely, isn't it? And again, it's the same sort of thing that you come in. You know, mint is one of the things you always get too much of.
Yes, mine are kept in a pot.
But again, you know, that would be something to share. And it's also, all the mints that we've got are at least partially native to us and mostly native. So, I mean, even just chucking them into the field, it's not going to hurt anything. And it's certainly not going to hurt any cattle. No. Or sheep, because they actually need things like that. They just don't get enough of them, most of them. So it's really worthwhile. And I'll bet you there is a wildlife trust near Portsmouth. Yes. Yeah. In actual fact, we have literally a couple of roads away from me, we have a local hedgehog society. And the lady does brilliant work she's literally on call, and she goes out and collects injured and you know, random hedgehogs, nurses them back to health, cleans them up, and, you know, release them. She has sort of foster families that look after them and then release them back to the wild, which is amazing work, particularly in the city, because they do get a lot of, you know, injured ones. Yeah. No, so it's for everybody. I mean, look out for things like that, and then ask them for help. And I mean, your hedgehog lady would be absolutely ideal. As to what kind of things shall I put in the garden? Yes. And so again, go on to a hedgehog specific site. You know, like one of the hedgehog rescue sites, because there's a lot. So I think there's a Facebook page, at least one on it as well. Yes. Yeah. And say, I've got a hedgehog box. Please tell me how to plant it and where to put it and all that sort of thing. Yeah. But they need cover, and they need shade, and they need to know that they've escaped somewhere out of the general view, where no sneaky fox is going to come up and have them for lunch. So you need to take all that into account. And is also a little thing to think about, and we sort of think of predators and prey. Well, a hedgehog is both. Yes. Because it's a predator of all sorts of little beasts. Yes. But it's also prey for somebody like a fox. Yeah. Another one, bird one that is the barn owl, which is not quite our smallest owl, but pretty well. And it's certainly one of the lightest and one of the least defended. And yes, you know, they eat mice and little voles and things like that. But a larger raptor will take them. Right. And they will be food, especially at this time of year when you've got chicks. You know, you're taking whatever meat you can get to put down the chick's mouth. Or to make your eggs with, or whatever kind of thing. So it's interesting to see how many of them actually are both predator and prey. And there are some that definitely are prey. I mean, all the cattle varieties, including deer, are, and horses are. They don't eat any other animal. No. And nor should they. Their digestions don't. But, you know, a bat is a predator. Oh, I love bats. I adore bats. We've actually got bats in our attic.
Oh, excellent.
And so I'm getting onto our local bat society when they can come out again, which hopefully they will be able to now, and say, come and help me with these bats and tell me what I've got, and is there anything else I should do apart from not let anybody touch them. But they take all sorts of insects and prey, and other things eat them. And including small mammals. If they get a bat on the ground and they can get it, a weasel or a rat or anything will eat a bat.
Yeah.
So it's like, this is such an interwoven thing.
Absolutely.
I suppose.
Sorry.
Go on.
I was just thinking about your water thing again, and as a warning, a couple of years ago we lost a fledgling in a bucket of water. One of our trough things, trug things that we use for putting weeds and things in. We usually keep them upside down, but it had been turned up and it had filled with rainwater, and we found a poor little fledgling who literally obviously landed in it, and drowned. So be mindful when you have open things of water, because fledglings can get lost in there too.
We even had once, it was on the last farm I was living in, they got a big drum of water and a squirrel had fallen in there and died.
Oh, okay.
Couldn't find a way out. And so they that water's stinking a bit. There's a dead squirrel in it. You could have put a lid on it. I mean, it was the sort of thing that could have a lid on it quite easily. And particularly if you've got, I've got water barrels attached to the drain pipes and things.
We've got.
Make sure it's got a lid.
And
the lid is on. Because it is so, and the size of these water barrel things are damn near as tall as me, and I'm not really diving in there. I think it's going to have to be a net to get anybody out. But so take care. It's going to happen anywhere. They fall into streams, they fall into puddles, all sorts of things. But don't add to the problem.
No.
I think that's the main thing.
You
can't stop it. Did we have any other questions that we have to maybe stop up?
Well, there are, but we will deal with them next time, because
we actually have. We've spent an hour chatting about hedgehogs and gardens. But it's and you learn so much from them, don't you? Like you sitting and watching the birds, or me sitting and watching the birds.
It never occurred to me that the birds would have picked insects from the brickwork. It was just literally sitting there. Watch. I could have asked my dad, because he
would
birds. Ever since I was little, he knows all the birds, and he's always got his bird book in his pocket whenever we go out anywhere. And but I should have known that, really. But yes, it was just watching them that I realised that that's what they were doing. So we're not repainting the wall. That stays as it is.
But when you're driving, sometimes, particularly once the insects have started to come out, like now, you may sort of driving down this lane and sort of around the corner, and there's this whole pack of birds in the road, and there isn't there's no dead animal there. That's insects again.
Oh, of course, yes, like a big cloud of mosquitoes or something.
Well, not only that, it won't just be mosquitoes. It'll be stuff on the ground, on the road, because the sun has made the tarmac hot.
Oh, okay.
And the insects need the heat.
Right.
So the birds are like, whoa, Sainsbury's. And then they dive in there and eat as many as they can, which is a good job, because we would otherwise probably be up to our ears in mosquitoes or something.
This is it, isn't it? I think this is the thing that you have to remember, particularly with things like, I know we've talked about deer culling and things like that before. If you let nature do its thing, it all looks after the balances the numbers. Yes, badgers eat hedgehogs, but it all keeps the numbers at a manageable level. If all the animals are doing what they're supposed to do. We came across a problem, didn't we? Because things like deer, they lost their predators. They lost the wolves that we used to have in the forest. So it made it all out of sync. So you need that kind of
And until we bring, I mean, there's wolves and there's lynx. Lynx might come back before wolves, please. And they will take them and they will eat them and they will make such a difference. I'm going to say it again. Go and watch the little tiny film of how wolves changed rivers on Yellowstone.
Yes.
And you will see what the introduction of the apex predator did. And how everything, including the fish and the plants in the river, all benefited.
Yes, it's a knock-on effect, isn't it? It's
Totally.
It's a domino thing, yeah.
And being scared of wolves or scared of lynx is really daft, because they don't do any of the things that you read about in the stories, except probably shapeshift, and they definitely do that. But you don't get ravening wolves, and you don't get packs of ravening wolves chasing into villages to eat people. You really don't.
Running off with your babies,
No. And you don't get foxes creeping into your house to take your baby out of its cradle either. I think that was one of the Daily Whale or the Daily Mirror's sort of classic stories, you know, get everybody going. I mean, somebody, when I was bushcrafting years ago, somebody said, well, hedgehogs crawl into your hammock and eat you.
I'd like to see a hedgehog climb up to a hammock for a start.
Well, it's up the tree and then down the rope, you know, where you, I mean, it's feasible. And it was sort of like, I mean, he was a bit thick and he was a little bit annoying, more than a little bit, really. And I was with this gang of people who we all had evil senses of humor. So we absolutely wound him up. He ran away the next day, which was a good idea. I think that was the intent. It was like, this is what ravens do. This is what crows do. You mind out for that squirrel. Those stories that were coming out, it was definitely, you know, it was on the level of the hedgehogs milking the cow, you know. So it does make me wonder whether those stories didn't come out of people who needed to be wound up.
Yes.
But if I'm out on my own, and I'm sure most people probably realize this, the only thing that I'm scared of is other people.
Oh, yes. Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you on that one. Yeah.
I will be out in the woods on my own at night. That's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
If I hear another human, is where's my knife?
Yes. Yeah.
They are scary, but no wildlife will hurt you.
No. Yeah. Absolutely.
Hitchcock's The Birds is a film, honestly. It's not a documentary. So enjoy. And
yes, I'm looking forward to that book. That's going to be fantastic and very, very much needed.
I hope so.
In this modern time, definitely.
I just hope Severn Trent decide that I'm worth supporting them, because it will just make life that much easier, because I can get more research done if I've got a little bit more money, because I mean, all the wildlife trust people are volunteers. We all are. But there's things you can do to like help things along. You know?
Yes. Yeah.
So we'll have to see.
Fantastic. Excellent.
Fantastic.
Yes. Well, fantastic talk today. Yes, hopefully it'll help anybody that's got a hedgehog house and doesn't know what to do with it or wants to find one. So that would be brilliant.
And hopefully you might end up with a hedgehog house come the autumn.
Yes, I have to talk to my neighbours first before I start knocking holes in the wall. I am going to move my bird bath top and bury that, put that in the ground. I think that's a brilliant idea.
Yeah. And there's a place for, I mean, you might want to put around that, so you're mowing, using like a strip of wildflowers. How about putting a few
around the edge?
Around the edge.
Oh, brilliant idea. Yes.
And it looks so gorgeous.
It shall be done.
Pictures, please. We shall need pictures.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yes.
Okay, guys. Lovely
Excellent.
to meet you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And we will see you all again soon.
We will. Bye.
Bye.